It's a waiting game. Carl Goldman has been in quarantine at a hospital in the U.S. since leaving the Diamond Princess cruise ship in Japan. He is documenting his journey on his blog. His most popular post was when he announced that he had tested positive for the coronavirus. It's been viewed more than 42,000 times.
The worst symptom was the fever, and that hit for only about 8 hours. And then, like every fever after that, I was drained, feeling lethargic. I was definitely dehydrated. There are no antibiotics for this, so they were pumping me up with a ton of Gatorade. I've been through every color of the rainbow of Gatorade to keep myself hydrated.
Today, his doctor handed him yet another Post-it note. The plus sign tells him he tested positive for corona again. It's been more than 30 days. Carl's wife was recently released from quarantine. Even though she tested negative, he says she was threatened when she returned home. The spread of coronavirus has also led to racist attacks. Earlier this week, Jonathan Mock, a student from Singapore, was beaten in London. On Facebook, he said he remembered them yelling something about the coronavirus before punching him in the face. Another headline tells the story of a Chinese woman attacked in the Netherlands. In Vietnam, the government is taking a social approach to tackling the virus. This video went viral and has been turned into a popular dance on the social platform TikTok. The World Health Organization lists hand washing as the #1 way to stop the respiratory illness from spreading. Quarantine is another.
Look, the government is telling people basically not to go anywhere, actually. We're basically sort of locked in our house. I mean, my job has been, I'm a college professor. I'm not teaching right now. They just canceled class for the next 2 weeks. My kids are in kindergarten. That's also been canceled. So we're basically just stuck in the house.
For those in quarantine, the psychological impact can take a toll.
It's mentally and emotionally draining because you really have to put a lot of work into keeping sane and trying not to get lost in all your thoughts and the thoughts of dying or contracting the virus.
We have been in our room for the last 40 to 45 days, and it's not possible for a human being to stay in one place for that long.
As for Carl, he'll have to stay in quarantine until he recovers and gets a note from his doctor that clears him to go home. Leah Harding, Al Jazeera.
Well, joining us now on set is Dr. Patrick Tang. He is the Division Chief of Pathology Sciences at Sidra Medicine. Thank you so much for coming into the studio. Really good to talk to you. So I know you were involved in the SARS outbreak and dealing with that when that first happened, and also in 2009 when the swine flu first happened. And I do want to talk about the pathology of this virus and all of that. But first, I want to ask you the questions that I think people at home, there's so much panic and fear out there. People at home don't know what to think, trying to separate fact from fiction. So I'm hoping we can just go through a few of those questions first. First off, a lot of people are saying, hey, look, this is no worse than the normal flu. We shouldn't have this panic. It's unwarranted. What do you think? Is that a fair comparison to make between the seasonal flu and coronavirus?
Many people have compared seasonal flu to this new coronavirus. And for this new coronavirus, it is at least as deadly as seasonal influenza. It's probably a very bad seasonal flu. So it will kill about at least 0.1% of the people that infect. So we definitely need to be concerned about the virus, but whether we need to be panicked about it would be a different story.
We have, the numbers seem to be varying wildly, and it depends on who you talk to. The World Health Organization said the other day the death toll could be as high as, I believe, 3.4%, but obviously they have so much information that they don't have yet around mild cases. So when do you think we'll start to get a clearer picture about just how deadly this actually is?
I think as the number of cases rises in different countries, we'll get a better sense of what the true case fatality rate is. I think a lot of the numbers come from China right now, and because the outbreak started there, they weren't quite prepared. Their healthcare system was overwhelmed. So the case fatality rate in Hubei province was very high. It was 4-5%. So that's not what we're seeing in the rest of China, and that's not what we're seeing in other developed countries such as South Korea, which has had many cases, but their healthcare system was ready for it.
What is the best case scenario about how you see this playing out versus what you see as the possible worst case scenario?
So at this point, with so many countries infected and many places with community spread, it's highly unlikely that we'll be able to contain this virus with the tools that we have right now. The tools that we have are quite crude, things like travel bans and quarantines and things like that. We don't have good specific medications against the virus, and we don't have a vaccine against it. So it's quite likely that this virus will last at least until next year, until we have new tools to help us combat it.
Is the whole world going to get this virus? I see things online, people talking, that it's possible this may spread across the whole world. There was the chief medical officer in the UK was saying 80% of Brits could potentially get this virus. Should we be preparing for that kind of eventuality?
So all of these are estimates, and estimates are just estimates. Okay. So it's quite possible that many of us will become infected with the virus, but the thing
Sorry,
that
will or won't?
Will be infected with the virus. And what we're hoping for is that we don't all get sick at the same time, because the problem is too many people get sick in the same region at the same time. That would overwhelm the healthcare system, and then we would have a situation like they had in Hubei province. So it's important that all the countries prepare their systems and infrastructure for a large number of people becoming infected and have a plan for it.
So is that why we're seeing still these efforts about containment, even though, as you say, most people are agreeing this, we're past containment? Mm-hmm. Are those efforts so that we can stagger the amount of people who are turning up to hospital at the same time so we don't overwhelm health systems?
Exactly, that's true. I think it's a combination of containment and trying to slow down the spread of the virus. So many of the measures that we're taking, things like restricting travel, quarantining people, those are things that slow down the spread of the virus. And some other countries have gone even further to shut down mass gatherings and even close schools.
Lots of people are stockpiling things. We've had a lot of reports out of places like Australia, people buying all of the toilet paper they can find. Should we be stockpiling things like food or water or medical supplies?
I think it's a normal human reaction to do these irrational behaviors when we're fearful.
But they
of what
are
might
irrational
happen.
behaviors. That's my question.
Yes, there's no reason to stockpile toilet paper. There might have been some fears in Hong Kong because the people there initially, when they stockpiled toilet paper, it was because the supply chain came from China, and they're worried that if all the factories shut down in China, those people wouldn't have toilet paper, and maybe this fear spread to other places around the world, and that stockpiling toilet paper would definitely not be warranted.
Just finally, how effective are these small measures that we're seeing advertised from various authorities about how to stop yourself from getting it? I've seen things like don't use cash, avoid using cash where you can, don't touch buttons in elevators, use your elbow, don't touch door handles. I mean, how effective are those things? Or what things should people be doing to stop themselves from getting sick?
Those are all little common sense things that we should always be practicing. We should always be aware of what we're touching and where we put our hands, and because this is usually the way that we transfer a lot of germs to our bodies, and often we touch our faces, so that's a natural way for us to acquire infections. So I think all of these little measures added together, if everybody practiced them, and we could trust that everybody else was doing the right thing, then we can slow down the spread of the virus.
Really good to get your analysis. Thank you so much for that. That is Patrick Tang there, the Division Chief of Pathology Sciences at Sidra Medicine. Thank you.